For the past 15 years, Pop Tropica has existed as an MMO revolving around solving problems across dozens of islands and even learning new things along the way. However, beneath all of that, there has existed a massive and kind of convoluted story that almost nobody has seemed to look into. So let's go right in and find out what's been going on in this world throughout all of this time. Hi everybody, I'm here in the Oval Office. I've become president. There's been a lot going on in the past couple weeks. Even I don't know how I got here, but I sure am. And I'm ready to do president stuff like declare wars and make laws, or at least I'm pretty sure that's what I do. So Pop Tropica has been on my mind for quite some time now. It definitely gave me the vibe of something deeper going on as a story behind the scenes. And boy howdy, there sure was, and I don't know how I feel about that. Our story today takes place primarily between two locations or planets, whatever you want to call them. At least one of the two are called Pop Tropica. For the sake of this, I'm gonna call the one that is for sure Pop Tropica, Pop Tropica. The second one is basically Earth. Not our exact one-for-one world, just one where Adam and Eve were replaced by Mr. Pringle and an oyster, because all the people look like this. I'll be dubbing this not Earth as Harrison, because I'd rather call it Harrison than not Earth. Supposedly the same stuff plays out in Harrison as it did for Earth, pretty much one for one, but only kind of and only sometimes, and every once in a while a random part of the world becomes accessible by Pop Tropicans or Pop Tropians. I'm gonna say one or the other. You just gotta accept it. And by that I mean at random points in time, at random parts of Harrison, sections of the world will appear in Pop Tropica planet as islands. They basically act as portals when this is the case. Very rarely will islands stop acting as portals, but if they close, they remain closed regardless of what side the portal people are on. I would best describe it like a game of whack-a-mole. Imagine that on the game cabinet, we're looking at where the moles actually pop out and get hit, and treat this like the portal. The exterior of that is the Pop Tropica plane, where we can use our external forces, i.e. in this case, the hammer, to hit the moles, which I would consider exploring the islands when they show up. Imagine also that if in this case, the hammer doesn't lower the moles, but if hit wrong, it can alter the timeline of whack-a-mole, which by proxy messes up all of reality. Eventually, if you hit the mole with a hammer or not, the mole should be expected to return back into the hole and away from crossing between planes. One tiny problem with this though, because all of the islands are from separate times in history, the timeline is fundamentally flawed, dumb, and stupid, and the butterfly effects that can happen here run so rampant, and it's this unpredictable hellscape. But that's great to get out of the way. In this game, it's good to know that time as a whole in this universe is as sturdy as a cheese stick. There are multiple ways to decipher this story. For the sake of this, I'm gonna assume the release dates of these things are when they happen in Pop Tropica time, but I'll use our own history to determine when Harrison Islands take place in their time points. In my eyes, the best place to start has to be in the books, more specifically the 4 graphic novels that take place in 2015 on both timelines. And you know me, I love reading, so this'll be fun. So in the books, we got 3 kids that are important. There's Oliver, who is in fact a main character. His dad left the family and divorced because of him, by the way. His mom remarries to the dad of one of the other kids, Maya, and they hate each other at the time being, and Maya is still a little salty of her mom dying on a random Christmas morning. Honestly, fair, you can't be too upset about that. And then there's also George. He's the fat one. That's his character trait. You know the meme about like pizza and friends equaling fun? That's their dynamic basically, just more divorced than usual. This story is an isekai for people who don't have a BMI higher than their IQ, or you're fortunate enough to not watch anime. An isekai is when characters or several characters are brought into a new world unlike anything they've ever seen. Wow! One day, the children go on a hot air balloon until their pilot of the balloon sees a storm and flies into it, causing the 4 characters to be sent to Pop Tropica. This is Octavian. He's a bad guy. He's got a map that lets him travel between all the Pop Tropica islands instead of regular not Earth Harrison islands, and for the moment, that's really all you gotta know. Anyway, the hot air balloon crashes on the Mystery of the Map Island that takes place in 2015 and between 1950 to 1000. See what I mean? This is gonna be convoluted. The times aren't gonna make sense, but it's gonna be fun. We're fine. In this book, the 3 main pals all get captured by Vikings, while Octavian is stuck in a tree and being uncool. You can play through this book in the game version, but otherwise everything plays out about the same. The kids escape while Octavian gets captured by the Vikings. This immediately gets undone in the second book when Octavian cleaves the skull of a Viking. There is a kill count in Pop Tropica. It will go up. The trio goes to a few islands and just get absolutely curb stomped everywhere. They just cause a lot of riots. They almost die in the Arctic to a snowstorm and polar bear, but don't thanks to a crashed ship dealing with scurvy, and meet Lieutenant Rogers and Captain Franklin. They all quickly become pals after feeding the crew oranges, then they try to find an escape only for the boat to get destroyed by the same polar bear from before. They return and a few things happen, namely that Octavian shows up again and steals the magic map back from the kids. Lieutenant Rogers has like a tribal tattoo, a lot of characters do in fact. Oh, and a magical spaceship flies in and abducts the children. We got a new character now, Spencer Albright. He's the leader of the Secret Society, and these guys are important to this story specifically. See, because of how everything works in the world, you know, that existence itself is about as stable as a stale Twizzler, and there's bad antics everywhere and whatnot, there's gotta be some precautions. In Poptropica, the Secret Society and members of this group do everything they have to make sure the portals through time don't get tampered with and change the timeline. Octavian originally was a member until he met this one woman named Paula, and they started a relationship. One problem though, she lives on Harrison, specifically in a small European town around August in the year of 79. Do you know anything that happens in any small European town around August in the year 79? Pompeii. Paula dies in a volcano eruption, and Octavian is bummed the flip out. Initially, he tries reverting it so Paula is alive again, but then the Secret Society is like, dude, we didn't do shit during the Titanic when it showed up. You're out of your gosh diddly darn mind if you think we're gonna save Pompeii. So then after she gets thrown back into Pompeii and gets brutally killed by a volcano, they just drag her back in. He decides to take over Poptropica and by proxy all of Time of Harrison, which is exactly what he's doing with the map. We also find out that the tribal tattoo specifically is this thing called the Aegis, which is capable of rewinding small periods of time. So now the entire Secret Society's freaking out and losing to this single dude. Our group goes to Egypt during the construction of the pyramids right as the portal is starting to close, just in time to watch Octavian bomb the Great Pyramids of Giza, which makes all of Egyptian history disappear. This event kills at least a few people, and at least one of them was needed in Spencer's family tree, erasing him and basically anyone with ancestry relating to this moment from history as a result. So now things aren't looking too good. The Secret Society is gone, everything sucks, and the gang goes down to a submarine to find the heart of Poptropica and the Nexus. And they do. And when they do, this is when I realized how futile the efforts of making a Poptropica timeline was. Spencer Albright's still alive because there's multiple timelines. Do you remember when I said the timeline looks like this? Well, actually it looks more like this. Supposedly, there's millions and millions of timelines. There are so many timelines that the screen is just black with time points. And there is really just so much to deal with, but really treat this like the MCU after Avengers Endgame, where there suddenly becomes way less stakes, and the series is ruined when you overthink it, because instead of the universe being at risk, only a universe is at risk. Do you see the problem? There's not much intensity now. So then each character sees themselves in a different timeline, and the Octavian of our timeline we've been following dies trying to hop between realities to see his girlfriend. He dies because he's horny, long story short. Oliver and friends all can finally go home, and just in case Poptropica needs more help, they get time crystals so they can hop back. I should also add that there's a comic strip following Oliver and George without Maya, and they play out about the same but without an extensive story. These are two entirely different characters from these two. I don't know what to do with them, so we're just gonna sweep this under the rug. We're gonna entirely ignore it. This is not real. We're not gonna acknowledge this, but we are gonna acknowledge this 10-second long bit. This little talk by little old me was brought to you by GamerSupps. They didn't edit or script anything. That was all me though. This thing full of powder stuff is the only vitamin powder that your lovable president uses to play Poptropica. That's a true story. And make sure to use code CHUBO next time you buy some, and I'll get free stuff. And I like free stuff. And you should like that I like free stuff. Also, in some exciting news—
Excuse me, Mr. True President, sir?
What are you doing in my new safe space? Why are you interrupting my sponsor segment?
Well, sir, I'm your secretary, Jake Miller, seen on my glamorous name tag, and you gotta knock your lawmaking antics the flip off.
What?
Well, you see, you're making laws and you actually can't—
No. Stop talking. Why does your name have 3 separate vowels? That's too many. You should be ashamed of yourself. I'm making a new law where your name's now Milk. How's that sound? Milk? I'm also making it illegal for you to disagree and not sit down in that chair and wait until my more important affairs are done. Wait your turn. I'm the president. Anyway, that's about all there is in the Poptropica graphic novels meant for children, but there's still an entire game to look at. But honestly, I don't think the rest of this will be that complicated, more so just elaborating on things we already— there is A lot of Pop Tropica content, to say the least. Versions alone make this kind of complicated. I mean, there's already 5 versions of the game. There's the Steam version, the browser version you can find on Cool Math and Mobile, the DS version, the 3DS version, and the shutdown Flash version. And all of them have different islands. A few islands appear on multiple versions, but if you want to beat Pop Tropica, you'll have to buy it 3 separate times and then find a way to play the old Flash one. Browser one's free though, so yeah, that's a good place to start. Here's the thing though, most of this stuff is independent to respective islands, and most of these events are just actual events in history but Pop Tropicized. Like the Mystery of the Map Island is a good example. We don't need to go over that again, and from what I could gather, that seems like the 2nd island in terms of Harrison chronological order, but it's the 44th in Pop Tropica's one. So it sucks, and it makes me sad, and I don't have seasonal depression, but if it feels anything like how I do now, let me tell you, I don't want it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna specifically base this off of Harrison's timeline, because that's the more complicated one, and I just like making things more complicated. I think it's fun. Let's start off at Mythology Island, 2010, and Ancient Greek Mythos time. Yeah, this sucks. Zeus is a dick biscuit, final boss of this island, and will return. That is everything I need to say for over 30 minutes of gameplay on this island. That is the only plot-relevant thing worth a note. Skipping a couple islands, let's take a look at Astronauts Island in 2009 and the 1400s-ish. This is basically the first major split in history between Earth and Harrison, but this guy Mordred brought technology to the kingdom Arcturus. He then gets banished and locked into a dungeon for this specific activity, so that's a bummer for about 15 minutes until he escapes on a rocket and goes to space. In the 1400s. So then the medieval kingdom thinks he died in space, but the princess isn't so sure, so she investigates and gets abducted by aliens led by Mordred, who's turned himself into a cyborg by the name of Binary Bard. So then after a fun space adventure, that doesn't happen, and he presumably gets killed by a space chandelier. 2010 in the 17th century probably. Pirates? Wowie! Captain Crawfish. He's a captain and not a crawfish. He's a bad guy. Stop the bad guy. He's bad and a pirate. 2011, and whenever Thomas Edison specifically was on a train. On Mystery Train Island, I'm sure this is gonna shock you, Thomas Edison is on a train, and then a lady does train crimes, and then she's arrested for doing such. There's about 20 to 30 villains in this series, not all of them got cooked properly. 2012 and 1912, the Titanic sinks, and just need to emphasize this once again, the secret society just let it happen. Might come as a shock for some, but usually I lose my cool near the end of our lovely discussions, but the implication that every single tragedy, event, and disaster that happened on Earth happened in Pop Tropica is too much. Do you have any idea how many tragedies that would include? We already saw Pompeii. We already saw the Titanic. Do you know what else is all but confirmed in Pop Tropica land? Slavery, communism, crusades, plagues, hurricanes, both world wars and everything surrounding them. The Salem witch trials, assassinations, Stranger Things, you name it, the Pringle people have done it. All bad things. I have limits. I wanted to take this seriously, but this is too much, and my little chipmunk brain can't handle it. So let's just mosey right over to 24 Carat Island. In 2009, and I want to say somewhere around the Great Depression, this is Dr. Hare. For some reason, he's one of the most popular characters in the series. Initially, he was just a dude studying at the National Institute of Silly Sciences until an experiment went horribly wrong and exposed him with rabbits or gamma radiation or something, and gadzooks, now he's a rabbit person. Goodness gravy. So now the rabbit part of his brain is apparently evil, and because of that, he wants to rule all of Pop Tropica. His plans start with him stealing all the carrots and then abducting some children. Big ambitions, poor execution. He's flying in space for the time being because he failed at a spaceship blew up. Early 2010 and probably the 80s. Counterfeit Island. I was told this is a pretty popular island with lots of stuff in it. I only want to talk about Balloon Boy. This is the greatest character in the series, no competition. In this island, you give him a counterfeit balloon that takes him into the sky forever. I'm not even joking about this. You can just see him in the background of a lot of random areas in the game, existing in his own silly world with nothing but him and a green balloon. I love this guy mainly because he reminds me of Cliffhanger from Between the Lines, and I like Between the Lines. And with that, we have finished everything you need to know with the first part of this timeline. Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of news. I wouldn't say it's bad, but from the looks of it, some of the islands take place in the future, or at least that's what it seems like. I wouldn't know. There's this one island I'm putting here, but I guess it could be anywhere in the timeline. In 2008, there was Time Tangled Island. You know what's better than a game about time travel? An island about time travel inside the game that's about time travel. In my opinion, this is the best normal island to introduce players into the game. Just an easy time travel adventure. It was the one where I said a lot of fun stuff to myself, like, why do I need to go into 2 inventories when attempting to use an island? Or why is this game considered educational? I would say like 4% of this game was even remotely educational. And why are all the controls in this game only using a computer mouse? You got over 12 fun buttons on a keyboard. It might just be me, but some of my fingers on my right hand cramp really quickly from excessive clicking, so this is more of a personal problem than anything. But if you want to avoid my terrible fate, word of advice: if a friend challenges you to punch a saw blade, don't punch a saw blade, especially when it's running. Anyway, this island involves you saving the future by going back in time and fixing a dozen points in time. Does this Poptropica island remind you of anything? It's Poptropica. There's a Poptropica inside a Poptropica. This is a planet model versus the actual solar system. Next island, the near future. We're in the future now. Mission Atlantis seems to have really advanced submarines and aliens. Lunar Colony Island is based on a moon base, and Cryptid Island has cryptids. I put all of them in the near future because of Cryptid Island specifically. A big part of the island follows the Jersey Devil, which in this situation is 300 years old. The Jersey Devil was born in 1735 in the original story, so just add 300 to it, and now we got the year 2035. Now these islands could be interchangeable in order, but a moon base and more advanced submarines seem plausible enough to hover around 2035. But I mean, come back in 12 years and let me know. I'll give you a high five if I'm not dead. The nearest future, I suppose. It's slightly more in the future. Virus Hunter Island, Superpower Island, and Spy Island are all in this kind of weird limbo. They most likely take place in the future, and respectively, they have shrinking technology devices and nanotech, superpowers available to the public, and spy technology. So really, it would more so be based on when these things show up in the world. They might already exist. I wouldn't know. You think I care about nanotech? No, I'm just a stupid cartoon on the internet. My favorite color is purple. Do you think I care about your stupid nanotech? No, I don't. I care about Poptropica, my favorite game called Poptropica. And again, you could treat this like this is part of a different timeline, which I won't be doing, but please consider these can go a few places. The not as nearest future. Here we have the latest islands, in my eyes at least. Game Show Island follows a world that faces an AI takeover. I'm pretty sure this might be a plot hole though, namely because of Time Tangled Island having both a good future and a bad future. This just feels odd to me for some reason, like I can't put my finger on it. Your character is in the future in this one, and then after whatever that nightmare was, is Steamworks Island. Not much to add here. It's steampunk, it's in the name. And finally, with that, we have finished talking about all the islands connected to Harrison. I really thought that would be it, but nope, we got 2 special types of islands that need to be added to the discussion. Both of them are completely separate to our lovable little Earth equivalent, but they happen to be existing in separate ways. The first type is the Sponsor Islands. One of the most beloved parts of Poptropica happens to be the crossovers. Usually the crossovers being from stuff you would expect me to talk about on this channel. Crossovers and ads typically consist of promotions between rooms. In this case, when I was playing, I saw Paw Patrol characters throughout the browser version, and they do that. And in special cases, there's entire islands dedicated to certain series, like The King, Big Nate Island, which you currently can't play on any available versions of the game. To my knowledge, at least. I spent $20 on Poptropica on Steam. Why can't I play Big Nate Island? In fact, why can't I even play Wimpy Kid Island? The author of the books, Jeff Kinney, created the game. I just want to see Roderick in the funny point-and-click platformer game, but yo, we got Timmy Failure, and that's great and all, but I just want to hang out with Big Nate. I just want to hang out with Big Nate. So you should know the drill by now. I'm gonna play the multiverse card. Try and stop me. You can't. The last type of islands are the ones that I believe exist exclusively within the Poptropica realm. There are 5 of these islands. Let's start off with the first ever added island to Poptropica in 2007. Early Poptropica. From the vibes of it, early Poptrop is basically Pilgrim stuff. The characters here are pixelated, and really all they're doing here is colonizing, because this is technically the start of the Poptropica timeline. Spoilers from, like, the past 15 minutes, I'm guessing. They've already succeeded. I'm sure you're shocked that Poptropica exists. 2010, Reality TV Island. This one is only important because of the fact characters throughout a few of the islands return here to compete. Like Dr. Hare, for example. He's in this one as a contestant, and this is important because of the next island released in 2012, Super Villain Island. And this is probably what I would consider the climax of a good amount of these characters and islands. Basically, every other important villain in the Poptropica timeline up to this point returns here. Captain Crawfish, Dr. Hare, Binary Bard, that one lady from Counterfeit Island that I ignored because the Balloon Boy is so much cooler, and the rest of them, like that one guy who shrunk himself in Shrink Ray Island, he's also here. I forgot to talk about him. Friendly reminder that Octavian isn't here because 1, that island takes place 3 years from now, and 2, he's dead anyway, it doesn't matter. A scientist named Dr. Jupiter hires you, and you specifically, to go in the minds of some of the villains in the super prison to extract their evil. This is kind of where we get to see why some of these characters act in these ways as well. Dr. Hare, for example, had the rabbit section of his brain bullied when it was young, and that is why he abducts children and tries to take over the world. But eventually you find all the totems of evil that makes the evil dudes evil, and you give them to Dr. Jupiter, and that's all pretty good until he lashes out, and he's kind of a dick biscuit about it. Hey, wait a minute, I only know one dick biscuit in Poptropica, that's Zeus! Now you gotta fight him to save the day. And then you do that. 2013, Poptropica, aka this island is stupid and makes my head hurt too much. This adventure is about Poptropica headquarters being under new management and repairing this mess of an island. This is an island about making the game that made this island that's one of infinite timelines. I'm just gonna call it canon, but if we're being honest, that's more of an opinion than anything. Like, friendly reminder, the timeline looks like this. It's just so many time points, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Doesn't matter? No, it doesn't, because I just said it doesn't matter. 2014, Poptropicon. An in-universe Comic-Con that's a lot of fun, makes everyone jolly, until this one guy, Omegon, who's supposedly a villain from a movie in the Poptropica world, takes over the convention and enslaves everyone who didn't escape it in time. The finale of this little island sees his ass being beat the absolute dickens out of so much that he falls off and starts appearing in reality TV with the Grim Reaper and Bob Ross. So there you have it. That is everything there is to know about Poptropica's world. Oh wait, shit, 2017, Poptropica Worlds. This is a sequel spin-off thingy. It's the same thing, I don't care, yada yada yada, it got shut down, now we're caught up. That is everything. Here's an official Chupo timeline of the islands. Again, I skip and trim through the islands, but if I were to guess, it looks something like this. Don't take this as fact, but more so like a template of my own version of the order of events. You know, there's a good chance some of this is wronger than wrong, but going by Poptropica logic, there's a timeline where I was entirely right, so you can't argue with this. This is fact. I'm smarter and cooler than you. Even though I didn't acknowledge all of the islands, I still liked a good amount of them. I enjoyed Pelican Rock and Monster Carnival specifically. A lot of these stories are really secluded and limited, so there's not much to say. And when it comes to most of the islands I didn't even talk about, they mostly just have a formula of something being missing or not being how it's supposed to. Then you do puzzles until you confront the person who's responsible, fix everything, and then get a medal. That's about all I can say with them. There's stuff that happens between that stuff, of course, but it's just like, I don't need to add that much. And the same applies with realms. I don't even know what realms are, dude. I played one, and I was like, okay, that's enough for me. I'm putting a restraining order on that. Really, though, the future of Poptropica is kind of weird, you know? There's so many versions. It is kind of a bummer. The version with the most content had to be shut down. Hey, Poptropica people, if you're watching this, I had a pretty neat time. I had a lot of fun, there was a lot of charm, very witty. It's a good game, it still is a good game. Your timeline sucks, hate to say it, that's both of our bads. I could maybe explain it better, but to be fair, like, do you see what I'm working with? Also, if you could please bring back Big Nate Island on every version, that would be really cool. Maybe even the controls. I would like to use my controller more. That's more of an option than anything. Otherwise, yeah, good job. Sorry I called you Pooptropica that one time on Twitter.com. I had a bad day involving a saw blade in my fist. I hope you understand. But this was as complicated as it was fun. I hope you enjoyed learning about Poptropica, and by proxy, Harrison. I hope you stick around for some more of my funny ramblings. There's already a ton that exist, and I hope you guys fix this gosh diddly darn statistic. It's been upside down for months now. This and this should be the opposite. If you guys want to fix it, feel free to. You know, I'm not your mom. I'm not your mom, but I am president. So actually, no, you might have to subscribe. I could make horses illegal if I wanted to. I'm the goddamn president of the United States of...
Do you even know what the president does?
Yeah, you make laws and you declare war on people when you don't like their foods or something.
No, there's like a whole system behind it. All right. Let me list what you can do.
That's what the president does? That's so lame. I'm changing the laws of that.
Chupo, buddy, did you not just hear me for the past 47 minutes? You literally can't make laws for millions of people to follow on a whim.
I'm also making it illegal for you to exist. You're hurting my feelings, so have fun not existing. Anyway...